This is Sewing Clothes for Barbie, published by Search Press by Annabelle Benilan, who's a French fashion designer with her own clothes store, but she's actually created and designed 24 projects for your Barbie, no matter which Barbie you have. So any shape or size of Barbie, these are really simple outfits for you to make, and you've got full-size patterns included in here as well. So you can be dressing your Barbie in disco outfits, in keep fit outfits, wedding outfits, holiday outfits. There's even a bikini in here as well, with very easy step-by-steps and diagrams which explain perfectly how to construct your garment. Look, we've even got a superwoman outfit there as well. So she's going to be dressed for any occasion. She's going to be prepared for any journey that she needs to take, and she's going to be looking very stylish as well. Now, Annabelle sent me over some of her samples, as you can see here. So Barbie is dressed in a cape and trousers. She has a very stylish, elegant taffeta evening dress with a little bag that matches. It could be a tea dress for going to parties or summertime or holidays, and then of course all occasions covered. This is Barbie getting dressed for the rainy weather, shall we say. So she's got a raincoat, her trousers and a top, and of course you can mix and match the different outfits together as well. So we'll have a chat about Annabelle in a little bit more detail throughout the video, but I do want to get on with some sewing because I'm going to sew one of the outfits from the book, and it's this one. This is the tea dress. So let's do it. This is the dress that I'm going to be making in a spotty fabric. I've already traced out my pattern pieces. There's only two, just onto pattern paper, and cut those out. And then I've cut out the fabric pieces and just transferred the markings of the dart onto the top piece. Now the skirt is actually a full circle, so that's how it's going to go together. So I need to sew the side seams down here first of all, and then gather around the top, because that actually needs to sit. It needs to be the same length as the bodice at the top, so it all needs to be gathered up to make it nice and full. So let's bring in the sewing machine and just sew those side pieces together. I think the nice thing about sewing smaller items like this as well, doesn't cost very much in fabric, and you don't need to pin a lot of the time as well. I like to use just a little bit of thread to catch my stitches as I start to sew, on smaller pieces like this particularly. And there's a 1/4 inch seam allowance which is included in the patterns as well, so that makes it nice and simple. So there we go. And then the same along the opposite side. And then we'll need a needle and thread, because we're going to sew that, gather around the waist by hand. Just line those two pieces up again. So, go out of the way for now. So there's my full skirt. So you're going to leave the back section open, and we'll sew that together last. So I'll need my needle and thread, and I'm literally going to take a really small running stitch all the way around the waistband, quite close to the edge. And quite small stitches as well, I think. So I was having a chat with Annabelle, the author of the book, and I was asking her if she used to have a Barbie and if she used to make clothes for her Barbie, and she said she did. And she loves making Barbie clothes, but she also loves making children's clothes as well. But when I asked her if there was a difference between making clothes for a doll and making clothes for a child, she said only in the respect that Barbie's limbs don't bend, so her elbows and her knees don't bend, so you have to take that into account when you're designing clothes for Barbie. But at least all of that's been taken into account by Annabelle, so you don't have to do the thinking. You just need to cut them out and enjoy making them up. So again, it's nice even little stitches all the way around. It's ever so quick actually. And if you sew quite close to the edge, you don't even have to take the stitches out when you construct the little dress. It'd be so much fun, wouldn't it, if you had, or if you're a dressmaker and you're making clothes for your children, and you could use some of the same fabric. So your little girl or your granddaughter could be dressed in the same fabric, or the same style of dress even, if you like, that Barbie's dressed in. Almost there. Annabelle's also worked as a stylist and an illustrator and a costume designer, and she's got her own clothing brand. In fact, she has a shop in Paris where she sells her own clothing, and she's written quite a few books about dressmaking, but this is the first time she's actually been asked to make a book about Barbie. There, so that's the gathers around the top. What I need to do here is to make those gathers the same length as the bodice. Also, we'll put the darts in there first of all, actually. So again, I've transferred the markings of the darts, which are just two little V shapes. So fold those so that the marks are together at the end, and we're just going to sew along that line that I've made. And I'm using quite small stitches on my sewing machine, purely because it's quite a small outfit. So we'll sew both of those darts in and then we'll match it up. So there's my little darts. So now I can tack the top of the bodice to the bottom skirt. So let's even out those gathers, so the same amount of gathering all the way around, and I'll just put a few pins in here as well, just while I measure. So if I pin the end of the bodice to the end of the dress, then I can pull that gather so that it's the same length, and even out the gathers so that they sit neatly across the bodice. And then again, I'm just going to hand tack before I sew on the machine. I was asking Annabelle about the level of expertise needed to make clothes like this as well. Do you need to be a dressmaker or have, you know, an amazing knowledge about sewing and your sewing machine? And she said absolutely not. They're quite easy for a beginner to make, but she said maybe some of the outfits you could even sew by hand. So there are plenty of fabrics on the market actually that don't fray, so that might be a good starting place for you. Or if you're getting children involved in sewing, that's a nice way for them to be able to create something that they can play with, that they can use, that they can achieve, and do it quite quickly and simply as well. So if you're a little bit concerned about your kids using your sewing machine, then you really don't need to. They can do most of these by hand. Felt's a good one to work with if you're sewing by hand, because it doesn't fray. Right, so just a few more stitches across here. Snip that off. Pins out of the way. And I'll sew on the machine. So just straight across that waistband. There we go. So if you do see any of the tacking stitches on the outside of your garment, then you can just pull those away. If you don't see them, then you may as well just leave them in there. So let's just snip that away. So I do need to hem across the top of the bodice here. So I'll fold that over and just top stitch with a small stitch all the way across the top. I need to take this to the iron as well, because I'm going to press the seam allowance on the edge here all the way down the side, and then I've got these two small velcro strips which I'm going to sew either side over the top of the seam. So that folds over there, and that's going to go from the very top of the top hem to where it finishes here. So I'll go and press that, we'll sew it together, and then we'll come back and finish it off. So that's how we're looking at the moment, so we're almost done. I've sewn one strip of the Velcro onto the inside of the dress and the other one on the outside, so when that wraps over it overlaps, and I've sewn around in a box shape to make that nice and secure. So next thing we need to do is to fold this right sides together, line up the waist and the top, and we're going to sew the rest of the seam from just underneath the Velcro just down to the hem. Then we're going to turn up the hem, and then we can get Barbie dressed, ready for the garden party. So let's just open out those seams again. And sew straight down. So when you first start sewing here, do a couple of stitches backwards to secure the stitch at the end, because that's the bit where you're going to be pushing Barbie inside the dress, so we want that to be a nice strong seam. Just down to the bottom, and then snip that off, and then we're just going to fold up the hem and sew all the way around. And again, tiny stitches I think are the best way to go, help to stop your fabric from fraying as well. But you know, you could put your own take on these as well. Wouldn't it be lovely to put some lace around the hemline or another frill around there? Or if you've got any trimmings, little pom-poms and things like that, I think would look really nice. So although you've got the basic pattern that Annabelle's made for you, you can adapt this. You can kind of make it your very own. Okay, just coming back up to the beginning. There, so I would press around the hem. Let's snip away these little threads. It's time for Barbie's fitting. There she is, all ready for the party.